Some good news, though. Some help is coming from for Zoe Buhler. Joining me is Gideon Rozner, Director of Policy at the Institute of Public Affairs. Gideon, thank you for joining me. What help is the Institute of Public Affairs organising for Zoe?
Well, Andrew, it all started late last night, when I was on social media tweeting about all of this in disbelief, like everybody else. And Zoe's brother reached out to me, and we spoke on the phone, and I said, look, we can help you in the way that we've helped people like Peter Ridd in the past. We will help put you in touch with some of the greatest legal minds in the country, which is what we've done. We've got people like Stuart Wood and Stephen Andrianakis working on this because really when you're up against the police in such a heavy-handed way and looking down the barrel of a 15-year sentence, that's the maximum sentence we're talking about here, you can't just rock up to the court with legal aid. You need some backing behind you, and I'm really happy that we've been able to give Zoe and her family that support and fight this.
Now, I understand you've got a couple of QCs looking at exactly this. What is the legal issue here?
Well, look, I haven't spoken to the legal team yet. I've been running around dealing with my podcast talking about the Zoe issue and all sorts of other media inquiries. In fact, that clip you showed from the Russian TV network, they asked me to come on. So this has indeed been made news globally for all the wrong reasons. In terms of the legal issues, look, there are a few angles I understand the lawyers are looking at. They're looking at process, fair procedure, whether the laws were validly made to begin with. I think there are serious questions of proportionality. There's the implied right to political communication under the Constitution. There's the Victorian Human Rights Charter. So there are a number of avenues here, Andrew, but the fundamental point is this. Parliament is not sitting. We can't even leave the state if we're that unhappy. We certainly can't protest or even put anything on Facebook. Overturning this in the courts is the only option that we have left. By hook or by crook, we have to prevent Zoe Lee from going to prison. It is just not right, and it will set an awful precedent.
Well, I tend to agree with you. But look, other people are saying this woman was breaking the law and putting lives in danger, and I would imagine, looking at some of the reaction that a lot of Victorians are thinking that, certainly presenters on the ABC are saying that. This woman's breaking the law and putting lives in danger. What do you say to that?
Well, in the immortal words of Margaret Thatcher, they would say that, wouldn't they? I mean, you've just given a great editorial where you've talked about the extremely low risk that this protest would have posed to the public. As you said, there are 4 active cases in the entire city of Ballarat. This has nothing to do with saving lives. Brett Sutton himself admitted that the curfew we're currently under in Melbourne was a policing issue. It wasn't anything to do with public health. The virus doesn't spread at night. Likewise here, we need to be really frightened of this, Andrew, because as you said, if this was such a big issue for Victoria Police, why did they not send in the water cannons on Black Lives Matter? This is about shutting down somebody for speaking out against the government. This is the police using a health emergency or the pretext of a health emergency to decide which political speech is valid and which isn't. That is really, really frightening.
I tell you what, there's a more imminent danger, and that's caused by the people actually attacking the family. I only believe that the families received death threats.
Well, that's my understanding too. In fact, I know for a fact that's exactly what happened. Look, I can't, the thing about this pandemic and this awful lockdown, Andrew, is it's made everybody meaner. We've become a nation of dibber-dobbers. And the people, Zoe and her family, have been thrust into the spotlight, have been given all this public attention. Zoe was handcuffed and had people watching her frog march over her own kitchen. As you well know, abuse and trolling and things like that are common in your and my line of work. But I think it's just very sad that people are ruining somebody for trying to raise money for his sister to get her out of legal problems. That's all this comes down to. This was somebody who was worried about their sister and trying to raise a bit of money from people on the internet. And for that, he's really copped a beating.
What cowards some people are, those internet
Correct.
warriors, those slime buckets.
It's a cult.
Gideon, some people may say I've done it loosely. I've talked about a police state, etc., etc. Look, I couldn't help but notice, 1, your passion for this cause, but 2, over your left shoulder, a Jewish candelabra, menorah. Obviously, this sort of stuff has got a resonance for you.
Look, it doesn't. Look, I've been careful about this. I'm not about to compare what's happening in Victoria to Nazi Germany. But what I will say...
No, I'm not meaning that. I'm meaning the general issues.
The general issues, but this is a point I've made, though. I mean, these things are often triggered by states of emergency. Governments give themselves big powers and they're often not retracted. And we have to be very careful about giving the government more power than we're comfortable with. But look, the fundamental point is this, Andrew. It's not that this is the worst thing I've ever seen happen in Australia. It's the fact that I never imagined in my wildest paranoid fantasies that this would ever happen in Australia. When did you ever think, you've been through issues with the HRC and with 18C and all sorts of other things yourself. Even then, in your darkest moments, did you ever think we'd be sitting here talking about a woman who was handcuffed in front of her own children over a Facebook post for encouraging a public protest, people gathering in the park? If this is possible, then imagine what could come next. This is an ugly, ugly precedent.
This is correct. This is correct. Every terrible movement starts with a few steps and it'll keep going until people stop it. And so far, I don't see it being stopped. And I agree with exactly, if this, then what's next? And there will be a next if we don't stop this.
There will be. And there'll be another state of emergency too.
Gideon Rozner, thank you so much for your time and congratulations to the Institute of Public Affairs.